Hi everyone, sorry it's been quite a long time since my last video. It was just at the time of month, everything going on and Christmas and all that sort of thing, but that's over. I hope everyone had a good Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. 2016, it's pretty exciting. Yeah, so I wanted to talk today about my experience with psychosis, my diagnosis with that, and when it all sort of started for me and the things that I would experience. My first ever experience with psychosis was when I was 16, and I started to hear a particular voice of a female, and to start with I just thought it was my imagination and I didn't sort of pay much attention to it. Just sort of thought it was sort of like when you get doubts in your mind and things like that. I just kind of put it down to those sort of things, and didn't really let it bother me, and then it started to get more developed and I would hear things more that I thought wasn't me, or wasn't my mind sort of saying that, and this voice kind of grew in confidence and started to try and sort of take over a little bit, take over my life, take over my mind and all that sort of thing. And this voice I named Lisa, and Lisa never has like a good word to say about me. She is always very negative, quite aggressive sometimes, not a very nice person, and she just always wants to put me down, and the more I feel downtrodden, she grows and just gets more powerful. I don't know why I named her, but I kind of just felt like that was her name. Just kind of had that feeling, that sort of gut feeling that that was her name. And she would quite often attack me when I was on my own, or if I was feeling quite low and depressed, because it was at the start of my bipolar developing. When I was on a low and I was coming down, she would quite often step in and try and make me have a really bad breakdown, more than it was. It was bad already, but she'd try and make it even worse. And I did actually confide in my mum, and I told her, and I remember saying things like, she will be the death of me. I think she's gonna kill me, because I just felt like she was evil. She was just not a very nice person, and she just had it in for me, and it was constant. It wasn't as soon as she was there and as soon as I was aware of her, it was constant. It wasn't once a month or anything like that. It was all the time. And it was very frustrating for me and very upsetting, and really confusing as well, because I didn't really know what to think at that point. But she was very, very real to me, extremely real. It was like I was being bullied by this person in my head. The way I dealt with her when I was stronger and when I was in a good frame of mind and had a good mood, I would just tell her to fuck off and go away, leave me alone, and that she was nothing and she was just a nasty piece of work and I didn't want her in my life. And sometimes that worked and I wouldn't actually hear her voice, or I would, but I just didn't let it bother me. So that worked when I was in a good frame of mind, but when I wasn't, it really dragged me down. So yeah, I would tell her to go away, leave me alone, and all that sort of thing. And it did work for quite a while. And that made me feel better. That made me feel like I had control over the situation. Even though I didn't really, but it made me feel like I did. When I tell her to go away and leave me alone, it made me feel powerful over her. Lisa was a constant battle for quite a long time, and I still battle with her now. Quite a few years later, she would say things to me when I was doing particular things, like if I was getting ready in the morning and putting my makeup on and doing my hair and doing what girls do to get ready in the morning. She would turn around and say things like, yeah, you need that makeup because you're so ugly. And she would say things like, I can't believe you go out the house looking like that, or you shouldn't go out the house because you're not worthy to live on this earth. You're not, you know, you're just invisible to people. Nobody likes you. You're a piece of shit. Nasty things, just like I said before, like bullying, and it was horrible, and I had to really kind of try and switch off from that. So yeah, she was a constant battle, and it was really difficult to, you know, accept that, and I really didn't know what it was to start with, and I told my mum, and it was just really, it was a really weird thing to experience, but it was also frightening as well, because you didn't know, it was almost like you didn't know what was next. I didn't know what was going to happen next, or what I might have heard, or, you know, what was to come if this Lisa was around. Maybe she had other people that were going to come and get me. I mean, I literally did feel threatened. I felt worried for my life, and I felt like she was gonna hurt me. Over the years, I then started to see things. It went from hearing like Lisa's voice to seeing things, sorry. And I would see things like shadowy figures and things like that. And I thought it was just ghosts that I was seeing, because I grew up in a haunted house and we had a lot of activity there, and I thought it was ghosts that I was seeing. And then I realised that it wasn't. I don't know how I realised it wasn't, but I just had that feeling again in my gut instinct that it wasn't ghosts. And then I just I'd start seeing more things. It sort of developed quite quickly. And one particular thing that I would see was the shadow man, and he is truly terrifying. He's really tall. He's about 7 feet tall, and he is a black shadow, and he wears a long coat and has quite a big brimmed hat, and he's very strong and frightening. And he used to come and visit me sometimes and just appear in the most creepiest way, and have like I used to sometimes make out features, even though it was black shadowy features, but I could still make them out. And it was like he'd walk in a room and look at me and have this horrible smug look on his face and then disappear. Or sometimes he would come, sit down and watch me, and it would be very disturbing. It would be uncomfortable. He would make me feel uncomfortable and make me feel frightened, and that wasn't very nice. but I never saw him as much as I would hear voices and things like that. He was like, he was not as regular as, say, like Lisa and things like that. He would sort of happen, he could happen once a month, or he could happen twice in a month or something like that. It was more random with him when I would see him, but it was frightening. It was really frightening, because he was there in front of my eyes, and I felt like he could have hurt me as well. So these things that I was experiencing with psychosis were frightening, and I was actually worried for my safety and for my physical health and things like that. At this point, my family knew about these sorts of things. They knew that this stuff was going on and it was happening and it was real for me, and they were really understanding. And it was all at the same time as my bipolar was progressing and my moods were up and down and all over the place, and I was having psychosis as well, and it was just absolutely chaotic. And my family didn't really they didn't understand why it was all happening, but they were understanding of it, and they were really kind to me and trying to help me all the time, or, you know, they'd comfort me if I was crying or screaming because I was frightened. They would always be there, and for that I am really grateful. And I don't think I would be here today if I hadn't have had their support the whole way. But yeah, they definitely knew quite early on, because I didn't know what to do. I had to tell somebody, so they knew all about it. I wasn't having psychosis all the time, but it was a huge part of my life. There was periods in between it where I was really good and really well and having a great time, and then times when it would come on suddenly and really affect me and affect the rest of my month or a day or a week or whatever. So yeah, there was times when, like, I would be okay, and then I remember one specific event where I was chatting to my mum in the kitchen, and I was talking to her about something, and I happened to see out the corner of my eye a little person running across the kitchen countertop, and I sort of looked at it and it took me by surprise, and my mum sort of said to me, you know, you okay, what's the matter? And I told her that I'd seen this little person like that size running across the countertop and ran behind the toaster, and, you know, it was confusing because I'd never seen that before, and it felt like instantly when I would see things like that, it felt like instant torment, and it made me start questioning everything and made my mind start ticking over ultra fast. And I didn't know, like, why was I experiencing these things? Were they real, or was I just going completely mad? I didn't know what was going on, and it was just really weird. And again, I went on for ages like this. I didn't have any help from doctors or anything. It was just something that I was experiencing, and my family were there for me the whole time, supporting me and just giving me love when I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on. You know, I was dealing with my moods, and then I was dealing with things I was seeing and hearing, and it was just really shit and just really petrifying. I was so frightened all the time. Every time I seen these things, it just gave me instant fear, and it was horrible because it would get my adrenaline pumping and my heart racing, and then sometimes I'd have a panic attack because of it, and it was just not a very nice thing to go through and experience. In recent years, before I had a doctor looking after me, and before I was on any sort of medication, things got pretty bad. The voices developed from just being one person to lots of people, and quite often I didn't really know what they were saying. It was just it was like being in a room with a whole load of people chatting at once, and you're not fully aware of it, but you can just hear it as background noise. And I started to hear these voices or hear people talking all the time, every time I took a shower. I'd get in the bathroom, lock the door, because there was a lock on the door, and I was still living at home at the time with my parents, and you know, I didn't want my dad walking in, because sometimes he just didn't even think who was in there, he'd just walk in. So I always made sure I locked the bathroom door, and I'd get in, I'd turn the shower on, get in, start showering. Quite normal, you know, quite often I'd be in a really good mood. Normally I'd be really happy, and then I'd be washing my hair or something, and because the noise of the shower I couldn't really hear anything else, and that was when the voices, I guess, decided to take advantage and pop in and start chatting. And it was frightening. I remember just being so frightened, and I would be showering thinking, oh my god, I can hear the voices, and they'd get louder and louder and louder, and I'd be like, go away, leave me alone, you know, leave me alone. And I would say it like I meant it. And it would just get worse and worse, and I'd be in there, started shaking, being really frightened and being like, oh my god, they're not going, what should I do? And quite often I would start banging. I mean, the bathroom at my parents' house was a shower over the bath, so you had to be stood in the bath to have a shower. And I'd start banging on the bottom of the bath because I knew that they would hear, like my parents or my husband would hear it from downstairs, me banging on the bath. And I'd start banging, and then nobody would come, and and then it would get worse, and it would almost feel like it was like I was being suffocated. The voices would get louder, they'd get angry because I was screaming for help, and it was like I was dying. It felt like I was being attacked, like I was being suffocated. The voices were getting louder, I was getting more and more anxious, I was panicking, I was banging for help, no one was hearing me, and it was awful. And I knew the door was locked, and I knew that I was thinking to myself, what if I collapse now? What if something happens to me and they can't get in, nobody can get in because I've locked the shower, like I've locked the bathroom door. I was thinking of all these things, it was all going through my mind. I was absolutely terrified. And then suddenly somebody hears me, and they come rushing up the stairs, and I managed to open the door, and they get in and talk to me and calm me down. And this would happen all the time, and it felt like sometimes it was happening every day, and it was so traumatic for me. There was times when it would happen and my mum would come rushing up, and she would have to get me out of the shower, and I'd be having such a bad panic attack that my lips went blue and they swelled up, and I was completely out of it. And I remember a specific time when I was really poorly, and it took my mum and my husband to get me out of the bath, because I'd had this horrible episode, and I was apparently, I don't really remember it much because I think I was so out of it, but my mum explained to me that I was screaming, like really like a blood-curdling scream, and I was screaming, and I was sat in the bath with the shower running on me. I was sat in the bottom of the bath, all curled up, screaming and really terrified, and it took my husband and my mum to get me out, to put a towel around me, get me dressed and into another room. And that was when I'm really sorry, my camera just cut out on me when I was talking through what happened with my incident in the shower. So I don't know until I look back on the footage what was the last that I said, but I'm hoping I'm carrying on from where I left off. And that was that I had a really bad episode in the shower where I was screaming, I was shaken up, and it took 2 people to get me out of the shower and into another room and get me dressed and dried. And that was when my mum said to me that she's seen my lips really, really badly swollen, and they were blue, and I was really out of it. And I briefly remember them talking to me, trying to calm me down and get me to take diazepam. And I was in a little daze, and I could hear these voices still. And it was really difficult for me to communicate with my mum, and that was really horrible, because I've had that happen to me so many times where I can't actually speak, I can't communicate, and it's really frightening, because it's like someone's taken your voice, and it's like you feel like you're being possessed or something, or something's taken over you, and it's really, really frightening. All this sort of thing went on for such a long time, and it was getting to the point where I couldn't shower on my own, and I had to have someone sit on the toilet waiting for me to shower. I had to have somebody in there with me while I showered, because I couldn't be in there on my own, because every time I was in there on my own, I was attacked by voices. And it was so frustrating, because I just wanted to be independent, I'm a woman, in my 20s, and I don't want to be in the shower while somebody watches over me. It was horrible. It was like having something taken away from you. It's like having your just being independent. Your independence taken away from you, and just makes you feel so low. And it would not help my mood at all. It would make me feel really depressed, and I'd go into deep depression and have terrible, terrible breakdowns because of it. And it was just awful. And I can't believe now, looking back, how me and my family just accepted it and just continued on without even thinking about, taking me to hospital or anything like that. It was really difficult. I don't know how we survived it, really. And I chat to my mum now about it, and she's like, God, I don't know how we survived. I don't know how I didn't, how I coped with it. She said, dealing with you like that and seeing my daughter go through that. So I don't know how we managed it. Eventually, I had a diagnosis, and it wasn't the diagnosis I was expecting. I didn't expect doctors to turn around and say to me that you have psychosis, you're experiencing psychosis. I knew that I had bipolar. When I had that diagnosis, it was a relief. I was like, yes, I knew that. Help me, basically, because I was at my wit's end with all that. But when I started talking to the doctors and opening up about my psychosis, I didn't really think much of it. We were dealing with it so well at home that I was like, the bipolar is more, is more urgent. My moods are more urgent than seeing and hearing things. Even though it really affected my life, we kind of got it down to where we were dealing with it and things like that. And when I told the doctors, that people have to sit in the shower with me, while I'm washing and stuff, because I'll hear the voices and things that I've heard and things that I've seen, they were really surprised, and they were like, well, do you not think this needs sorting and all that sort of thing? And I was like, yeah, really it does, but that's not my priority. But I'm so glad that I was able to open up to these people, and that they were able to help me. I mean, I didn't go on to medication for a very long time. I wanted to do everything naturally. I wanted to try holistic stuff. I wanted to try all these different therapies so that I didn't have to take any chemicals. But then it got to a life and death situation where I had to, otherwise it was going to be me leaving this world and causing so many people heartache. And that was when I made my decision to go on to medication. And I will talk about that in another video. I want to make that just a video of its own, because there were certain meds I went on to that didn't work for me. and then there was like the medicine that I'm on now that is fucking brilliant. It's really good, and without it I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't be this person talking to a camera and putting it on the internet, because the meds have made me stable enough to do that. And for that I am like forever grateful, because it's making me have a voice, talk about it, and perhaps help people in return. And that is a really, really good, happy and positive thing. So yeah, obviously I haven't spoken about everything in depth, because if I did it would be like hours of content. You know, I could not talk about every single incident and every single bit of my psychosis and put it online, because it would be forever, and you guys just wouldn't even be interested in watching it because it would be hours long. But I have spoke about things that have affected my life and things that are really bad for me to experience, and if by any chance I can help somebody, you know, even just being somebody to talk to, or just hearing my experiences, that's really cool. But if you want to know more, or you know, you have any questions about things that I've spoken about, please don't be shy, you know, leave a comment. I'm more than happy to reply. At some point I think I'd like to do like a questions and answers video, a little Q&A would be cool. So yeah, I'm open to all questions really. If you want to ask me anything about what I've said in this video, then please go ahead. And I will see you again very soon. I hope to upload weekly, you know, providing I'm okay and things like that, because some weeks I'm not as good as others. But provided I'm okay, I'd like to upload weekly and just share everything really with you. And it's good for me because it gets it out, and it just feels good. I can't really describe it, but it feels good to be chatting about it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and it wasn't too rambly, and that I can be of some use in some sort of way. I don't know, but yeah, I'm kind of rambling now, but I will see you very soon, and I'm sorry about my camera cutting out. Yeah, goodbye. I love you all. Thank you for the support and subscribing to my channel. You know, it's really cool. Thank you. Bye.